this is Idiots versus Idiots. I just want to say congratulations to you because you made it here today. My name is Danny. With me, as always, is my illustrious co-host, the Big Man. We're going to talk about business and marketplace news.
Wait a minute. I got upgraded to illustrious. What is it? Like, that sounds like some 1980s. Like, we're talking about a mall. Illustrious. Very illustrious. I should have flowing locks. Illustrious.
Well, yeah, no. Anyways.
You don't even know how to respond to a statement like that. Like, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
So, this is a show where two large friends take a lighthearted approach to talk about business and marketplace news. And I have to read that every single time. Otherwise, the ninjas that are holding me captive won't let me stay.
Lighthearted, forget that. No.
Yeah, okay.
I'm getting aggressive. I don't care.
Yeah, I know. Before we started, the Big Man was like, I'm going to be really aggressive today. I'm like, okay, as opposed to how you're regularly always really aggressive.
That's a valid point, brother. That is a valid point.
So, of course, we're going to start off with this story about Dispo, the app from David Dobrik. And I know that the Big Man is going to have a lot of rich, and I love the Big Man. And I know he is not a boomer, but his opinions are about to be
That is
so
not
boomer.
true. Why do you keep applying my opinions to a boomer? I can statistically show you how mine fit very reasonably into Generation X. He just likes to make fun of me, and you can just... You know what, off a bridge. But here's the point.
You know what's funny? Here's what I find hilarious. I make fun of him because he has no hair. I make fun of him because of his size. But the minute I call him a boomer...
It's offensive. It's 2021.
This guy loses his marbles.
Okay? Calling somebody a boomer in 2021 is about as bad as you can get. All right? Like, there's a lot of four-letter words out there to me that are worse. But anyway, here, look, you say, Dispo, right, which is partially owned and partially owned by David Dobrik. His problem, and I told him this problem before we started this show, is I was going to give him crap because he's forcing me on a business and marketplace news podcast when there's all these things we can be talking about. We're talking about a dumb YouTube vlogger by the name of David Dobrik.
Can I tell you something?
What's that?
He's not dumb. He is a genius.
Okay, all right. A genius in the way that he's a vlogger. Come on.
No, let me explain something. David Dobrik single-handedly crafted a vlogging format. He pioneered the 4-minute and 20-second rapid shot clip, like the jump cut video, and they're hilarious. Now, the reason I think the story is interesting is because the guy who basically pioneered vlogging itself, a guy named Casey Neistat, started a company called Beam. And it had a similar, not the same functionality, but the spirit of the function was that we are going to give you the opportunity to document a moment without forcing you to not be in the moment, right? Because Beam, you would put the camera against your chest because you can't look at the screen. They would take pictures. Dispo, you take the pictures and you don't get them till 9 o'clock the next morning like a disposable camera.
Well, and this is my issue. Let's separate.
Tell me
this.
about your issue.
Let's separate this. Let's talk about the app second and this guy first. Just because you... And I get what you're saying, and I give props to everybody that builds a successful YouTube channel and then turns that into whatever they turned it into. And there's a lot of people out there with that example that have made a lot of money off of YouTube, that have been there a long time and built platforms and all that.
And they convert that into other business.
Right, and David Dobrik, but here's my issue with that when they convert to other businesses, is just because you are a successful YouTube creator, right. Does not make you a good businessman, and does not make you good at anything else.
It doesn't. I agree with what you're saying.
And this is, again, the Paul brothers and all these different, Philip DeFranco has what I would consider now a failed news network twice over, right? Yeah. But he's still got a huge audience. And again, love Philip DeFranco, right, for what he is. But for what he is. But he's now failed at creating a news network twice. The Paul brothers have failed at a dozen different things, but they're still making money. And now we're talking about David Dobrik and a photo app. Like, this guy knows what the hell he's doing, okay? He is not Polaroid. He's not some guy out there. Why his name is attached to this is 100% has nothing to do with him or what he's created his money from. And again, it has to do with name recognition.
And this is why David Dobrik had an extremely successful Instagram page called David's Disposable, where he took pictures with a disposable camera and then uploaded them to Instagram.
So it makes marketing sense.
So then
I'll give you that.
Yeah, so let me put it to you this way. David Dobrik is not the CEO of the company. David Dobrik is...
He's a name.
Yeah, he's a name attached to the app. And the reason I thought this was interesting is because he launched this app, again, the same way Clubhouse did, invite only.
Invitation only, yep.
I think it's Apple only right now. I don't think they're on Android.
No, I think it's Android as well, but it's still invitation only, and I think you're going to see, just like we talked about Clubhouse, you're going to see more of this, because it just makes sense. You make it exclusive in the beginning, you grow it slowly.
It makes sense. It's like the Supreme, in our first episode we talked about the clothing brand Supreme. And it made sense for Supreme because Supreme can still make it work. But other brands knock off the limited edition and it just doesn't have effect.
Right.
Now, the reason I thought the story was interesting, and this may not be information the big man has because, it's not going to pop up with the, AARP catalogs that he gets to his house.
Yeah, whatever.
David Dobrik is in the middle of a poop storm. Because he's attempted, they're trying to cancel him because of some stuff that he did in his videos that are perceived by some to be quote unquote racist. I don't know if I agree with that connotation. And, he did some stuff that people are calling SA. I can't use the full phrase. You just kind of have to understand what I'm alluding to. But I think it's interesting that the team, and the way he's addressing it is by not addressing it.
Right. Well, and look, it's an old school tactic, right? And lawyers love this tactic, right? Don't address it. You don't say anything because it can't be used against you, right? And blah, blah, blah. But look, and I'm even separating that out. Like, I did read about those.
Yeah, so here's the thing is I think David Dobrik, and here's David Dobrik's genius. The genius I see in David Dobrik anyway was he's not a particularly funny person. That's fine, right? What David Dobrik did that was necessarily different than other creators on the platform was he played the orchestra. He put together the instruments. He put together the right people, found an old guy, right? He found a guy who's your age. And he's running around with a bunch of 20-something-year-olds, a divorced dad with 2 kids. So what I think is interesting, though, is that is innovative, right?
No, he figured out, again, giving him credit for building an audience. Yeah. And doing something that other people pioneered certain, YouTube-esque.
And now
good for him.
A lot of TikTok kids have ripped off that format. There's
Well, TikTok is an entire ripoff of what was it, Twitch or not Vine. Twitch, but Vine, right? Again, so TikTok is not an original idea, right?
No, but it adopted because it was Musically, and then it got bought by TikTok, and then TikTok adopted some of those Vine features to kind of attract a different
I just don't see, honestly, and we'll get into the app right now, but I don't see how David Dobrik is in any real part of this conversation. Talking about the app being Dispo fits well into our business and marketplace news.
David Dobrik
I think this is a great, because here's the thing, and maybe it's just me. I don't like the fact that I shouldn't have to talk about some dumbass YouTuber David Dobrik when it comes to an actual good idea, business idea. To me, the fact that his name is first, if you look up anything about this article, it says David Dobrik launches Dispo instead of Dispo and hope, by the way, right, David Dobrik is an investor in this or whatever.
And David Dobrik is I don't know how much, he's not even the biggest part of the business, right?
I had to look who this guy was. And again, that's nothing new, right? I had to look up who this guy was. But again, to me, that is... But again, when you're talking about marketing, you're talking about demographics, right? Gen
Yeah, and
Zers
so
are the people that are using this app already,
Right.
statistically speaking, right? But let's talk about the app. What is the app? The app is quite simply... And here's the deal. I really like the idea behind this app.
Right.
Now, part of that, I think this will be big, not just with Gen Zers, but Generation Xers and the bottom of the baby boomers, because Generation Xers grew up in the
disposable
camera era, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And doing it just like this. The idea is nostalgia, right?
Yeah. And
Right, in
nostalgia
today's
sells,
world of
man.
cameras and camera phones, I take a picture, I can instantly look at it, I can edit it, right, with TikTok and Instagram and all these things have built-in photo editors and video editors and whatever. The idea of this is a stripped down, you can't edit nothing,
Yep.
you can't, there's no filters,
And you
there's
only
no
see
nothing.
it tomorrow.
And then you get it tomorrow with the idea of, and you can create private folders, public folders, group folders, right? You can put them in category, well, hey, everybody that was at the party last night has access to them, but the general public doesn't, right? Or whatever. And then you get that automatic last night nostalgia. Hey, here's what happened at that party.
Yeah, and it's like I think that one of the premise of the app was like, it's kind of like at the end of I forget the movie now, but it's like, hey, everyone can now, we make a folder for the Idiots versus Idiots convention, right?
Right.
And we take the pictures at the cocktail hour the night before, and you and I and the 50,000 other people that are at this really massive convention that we're doing, they can see the pictures, but if you didn't pay to be at the convention, you don't get the passwords to see them. And I think, everyone can contribute their picture, right? So you get it from all angles.
Absolutely.
I think the app, here's my curiosity, right? Is who saw what David Dobrik was doing with the disposable camera? Because they came out with an app that was originally called Dispo, where it was just a filter. It just made your photos look like they were from a disposable camera.
Right. They looked old.
My question is, there's a technologist or an entrepreneur out there saw that and said, well, hey, here's all the functions we could add to this thing. If we attach it to David Dobrik, it's going to be way bigger than if we just launch it on our own with our own name. So they went to David Dobrik, who had an app, who had a filter app with a existing user base, and they went to David Dobrik that had an audience and said, let's just amp this thing up, because I doubt he was running out there, because they raised, again, I think it was $22 million.
Which is just crazy, right?
And a $200 million valuation.
I'm going to say evaluation. You can kiss my ass. But valuation,
Well,
here's the point, though.
I expect that from you.
The point, though, is okay, so you have this is one of those apps that I don't think, now again, I'm not an app developer, right? I don't write app, design, but I doubt that this is not cutting edge technology. This is existing technology. They didn't go out and create this brand new way of doing it. They're taking something that probably technologically wise has been around for 4 or 5 years and repackaging it, right? And good for them. I'm all for making money that way. By the way, it's a different take. And if you can make it marketable, right, using this guy, again, I'm fine with it. I don't know how it's going to grow, especially with $22 million, because how do you get Instagram, Facebook, or whatever? You grow through advertising, you go through adding, products to it or whatever. But if you start adding filters to it, does that take away from what it is?
Basic premise. So I wonder if there was a dialogue about, do we slow roll some of these features out, right? So that it creates that, like, oh, there's more value add, because today this thing has 5 or 6 features, and the potential of it growing without breaking the basic use case of it.
Exactly.
Rough, because,
and then how long does that nostalgia last, though? How long do people, because right now it's a cool idea because it's taking you back to something that is difficult to create on your own, right? With telling people, hey, I don't want you to use any filters. Here's real life, right? And look, you should really go out and watch. I'm sure Danny will link it in the description down below. The actual ad for this app, right, is David Dobrik in old person makeup, right?
Yeah.
Looking through a shoebox of old Polaroids that there's probably people listening to this podcast that doesn't know what an old school Polaroid photo actually looks like.
Yeah, what is that? You help me out?
You know what it is. Don't be
I
a
know.
jerk. But the point though is it's a well done ad. I don't know necessarily why instead of getting just an old person to do it for them, why David Dobrik needed to be in old person makeup to do it.
Well,
but whatever, right?
Listen, he's appealing to his audience, and they can feel nostalgic about literally last year. Okay?
Last night. That's what.
Yeah,
this
some of these
episode-
Polaroids are from last year. I'm like, oh, okay. No, but
you see what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
The ad was directed by Mark Romanek, who was the director of 1 Hour Photo. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think it was a Robin Williams film from way back in the when.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
most people watching this wouldn't understand that either. 1 hour photo was the thing when you had to develop film, right? And then it used to be way back in the day. You had to drop it off, and days or weeks later, you would get it back. But then 1 hour photo came along when Walgreens and CVS's and Walmart's or whatever, where you could get it back an hour. Which back in the day became, and then 1 hour photo. You had these stands pop up in big cities that weren't inside a store. But anyway, look. The point is I get the nostalgia. I just don't like the David Dobrik aspect.
Listen, I am old enough to remember film roll cameras, and I remember once my parents went somewhere with my uncle and aunt, and my cousins and I used up the entire film roll, just taking goofy pictures, and my old man was livid. Have to, because picture something on there they wanted, so they developed it. He was,
and they had to develop all of them initially. Yeah.
And the film roll comes out, and it's just goofy stuff. But now that we're all adults, my dad's like, I'm really glad that I have these goofy pictures of you cousins.
Oh, yeah.
Completely staged, but the point is, when I was 9 years old, what did I think was a good... Like, that's still funny, right?
Absolutely. Well, and you don't get that on today's electronics, at least for the most part,
because
right?
It's like, that's stupid, I'm going to delete it. But your 9-year-old head... It was just one of those things, like, like we're happy that they exist today, and like, we're...
Look, this is a little off topic, but
of course
20-something years ago, I was a Walgreens manager, right? And as a Walgreens manager, of course, at that time, photo, right? And that's still in Walgreens, right? Photo development or whatever. But again, this was back before the digital camera craze and stuff like that. So we developed 35 millimeter cameras, film all day, every day. And let me tell you something. You would be surprised at the photos that people bring to a Walgreens to get developed. And in store, because at that point you could send it out or you could in store. And in store was a little bit more expensive, but you would get it quicker, right? Or whatever. And you would be surprised at what gets developed in store when you're going to have to come back and look eye to eye with the person that developed your film.
There's that episode of Seinfeld where, I don't know, there's some confusion about developing, like George is trying to develop a film roll and thinks the young lady at the film developing store is flirting with him. But it turns out the person that's flirting with him is a man. And that's also fine, but I'm just saying that there was a confusion there. There's a whole episode about it. It's really funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anyway, so again, I think the app has potential. I don't know how it grows, right? Without ruining what the purpose of it is, right? But and I've made my feelings about David Dobrik very clear. So I hope it takes off.
And I've made my feelings about David Dobrik very clear.
Yeah, but
I also
your
want
feelings don't matter.
I know, but I want to make my feelings about something else very clear. Because we over here at Idiots vs. Idiots, we are death peddlers. That is right. We peddle the death of plastic pollution. Not only does Liquid Death murder your thirst, 10% of every can sold goes to end plastic pollution. And frankly, it is the superior water delivery system. Use code IDIOTS10 on liquiddeath.com and you will get a free koozie or 2 koozies with your order.
Which, those cans are not normal size cans. They are 40-ounce cans, right? So they are 40s. 16-ounce cans. I don't know. They look like 40s to me. The point the koozies fit the cans that are
Yeah.
bigger than most koozies. So,
Right.
you need that. Plus, I have a lot of respect for any company in today's world, including all of the companies that I'm a part of, doing part of their profits going to something good like
Yeah.
plastic pollution and stuff like that. So that's a beautiful thing to me. You know what I mean? Not to Danny, but to me.
No, I don't care at all. I think it's hogwash. Um, and speaking of hogwash,
Oh yes, good karaoke.
Lordstown
What's that called? Good
transition.
transition.
The good folks over at Lordstown Motors, which you have on this channel heard several times referred to as Lordstrom Motors.
Whatever, it's
By
Lordstown.
not the brown one in this duo.
Whatever. I'm gonna go back and find where you say it too. Just
Yeah,
FYI.
So apparently, for the last 3 to 4 years, Lordstown has been oops. Yeah, they've been faking their orders.
Well, so that and okay, Danny goes oops. Like okay, there's an oops, I made a mistake, which is what I think oops means. This is we fucked y'all over. Like that's what this is. This is people actively, dude, okay. At one point, if you read through several articles, at one point this guy was paying people to create orders. $30 a pop, by the way.
Right.
$30 a pop.
So
like he was just creating fake orders. I'm going to give you $30 per person, per order.
I say oops because, listen, sometimes we all commit some fraud.
No,
I don't know.
No,
I don't know how that's
there
pronounced.
There is no we. You are in that proverbial we. The big man, however, straight shooter.
I mean the royal we. Sometimes there's a little Slim Shady in all of us. As the great poet,
there is no Slim
Marshall
in this
Mathers.
big man. There's no Slim.
Marshall Mathers, as used to say. But no, I think we were right that so many of these so-called electric car startups and electric truck startups are vaporware.
They are vaporware. There's nothing behind it.
And here's what I like is that the same people that came for Nikola Motors came for Lordstown. Hindenburg Research. If Hindenburg Research had a Patreon, I would subscribe at their highest level. Because I love when these people are just like, by the way, Chamath Palahapati is faking it, Lordstown's faking it, Nikola's faking it, everybody fake.
Well, and
good.
Here's what I don't understand is you have Hindenburg Research, right? And they put out an article like this that says, look, you're being lied to or whatever. Nikola, for example, is not down to zero. There's still people invested in that and think that it'll, like, I don't understand. Again, now maybe I'm old school in, in stock market and valuations and I said valuations.
Wow.
And research into companies that actually do proper things and fundamentals and stuff like that.
Companies that raise funding from the public by building things and making a profit
and making a profit, right? And profit then affects, stock price. But so you have these companies. Concept. Yeah, right. And then you have these companies with these unbelievable, I mean, you're talking about this is no joke. When I read this, I had to go back and reread it, okay? It said Lordstrom announced that it had reached a deal to buy the recently shuttered GM plant in Lordstown, Ohio, using a $40 million loan from General Motors. So General Motors sold them a closed General Motors plant for $40 million that they gave them.
Yeah. So here's what I love, right?
Did you get anything?
No,
I mean, did you?
Yeah. Here's what I love, and now I'm going to now make a statement that is personally Danny's statement, has no affiliation to Idiots versus Idiots. How long before they replaced Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, with a dude? Because she made history by breaking through the glass ceiling and being the first major automotive CEO to be a woman. And she proceeded to dump hundreds, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into fake EV companies.
But is she the one making that call though? I mean,
No,
seriously,
but
I
the
mean,
point
General
is, at the end
Motors
of
is
the-
a massive company. $40 million is a drop in the bucket. That probably didn't even have to go to the board for approval, right? It
No.
was a shutdown plant. You know,
Yeah.
somebody was in charge of this. I guarantee it's got no big name person's name of the company
but
on the
at the
deal.
end of the day, when you're the CEO of America's largest auto manufacturer, and you bungle it this hard,
Well,
right?
I
And
mean,
you screw the pooch this hard twice in a row, so publicly, where publicly traded companies are turning out to be fake, and apparently General Motors has not bothered to, execute any sort of diligence
no,
in
and
these
this is
investments.
twice. This is
Yeah.
twice with big auto manufacturers, with Nikola,
No,
and
with
then now
Nikola
Lordstown.
but it's both General Motors. General Motors made this
Yes.
bungle twice.
Well, and that comes to me always when you talk about a company as big as that, and we talked about this before about how did somebody not look into this at all, right? But then you also have the failed promises that come along with this. This Lordstown plant closed, which obviously affected this small town, right?
Yeah,
And then you turn around and part of General Motors selling, even though they didn't sell it, they gave them the
Right.
money to buy it. Was the promise of all the jobs that were lost by General Motors going to get picked up by by Lordstown and stuff like that. None of those have come to pass. So you
Right.
have these big, and again, we're not a political show, but this was one of the things that was used as bringing America jobs back to America. This is the homegrown EV company, right? Truck company that has been touted for the last 2 years as something that is going to, you know what I mean? Stamp America on it, right? In the EV truck market. And now you come to find out that it's a whole big bunch of cards,
Nothing.
right? Right? It's a whole big
It's a
bunch
house
of
of
nothing.
cards.
And
It's
when
an-
you
it's
start
an
looking
empty-
at the big orders, here's when I say, when you say oopsie, and I like that, it was, oopsie. And when I say it's a mass cover up, when I went through and read, what's it, Hindenburg's, right, research or whatever,
Yeah.
like, they pinpointed, like, okay, here's a company that, E Squared Energy, right, supposedly ordered 14,000 trucks for their fleet. Well, when you look at E Squared Energy, they are two people that live in an apartment in Dallas that when they reached out to them and said, hey, did y'all order 14,000? And they're like, no. Yes, no, yes, no. And, okay, well, if you did, what were you going to do with them? Well, we're going to lease them out. But it's not really a lease, but it's kind of like that's the best way to explain it.
It's kind of like when your girlfriend calls up your best friend and is like, "Hey, is Danny with you right now?" And you dang know well you have to say yes.
100%.
Because he's out on the down low getting some side action, and you got to be like, "Yeah, he's with me right now." And then she's like, "Put him on the phone," and you got to be like.
And you're hoping for no follow-up questions at all. No follow-up. Don't ask me any follow-up questions at all. Right? And the same thing. Clean Fuels Ohio, which is a real nonprofit in Ohio, right?
Right.
Supposedly ordering, I don't remember how many thousands or whatever. And then they just flat out come out and said it. Said, look, we never intended to order these vehicles. He came to us as a publicity stunt and said, hey, you'll get some notoriety for your nonprofit. You'll probably get some more, donations, right? We'll be able to raise a little bit of more money. And what it looks like, and Hindenburg Research actually posted this, is all of these quote-unquote orders were used the same quote-unquote contract that at the very top of it literally says no intent. They're a letter of intention that has no, and they were taking no deposits.
It's a letter of non-intention.
Non-intention. It's literally me signing it saying, sure, why not, right? I mean, it's nothing. So literally every order that they've taken means
the same,
nothing.
It's the same agreement when you have a lady friend and you go, listen, if we're both not married by the time we're 45 and you're 19, so you're like,
right.
And she goes, okay, if I'm not married by the time I'm 45, then I guess we'll marry you. And it's like, well, we're in our 30s, so what are you doing now?
Well, I mean, it drives me nuts because it's not only, and when you get into this, now again, we're citing Hindenburg's research, right? I didn't research this myself
So
to
we
find
we
out
don't.
these
Of
things.
course, we have to give the the cursory promise that this is idiots versus idiots.
Absolutely.
And if
This is
you've
idiots versus
expected
idiots.
us to do anything other than read an article written by somebody on a website that generally requires us to have a membership, but we don't have one.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't know what's going. I mean, we don't know but Hindenburg has not, like, if we look at the last two times we've cited a Hindenburg story, they weren't wrong.
No, they didn't end up being wrong, and very often, and we're gonna do some shows on some follow up of things that we say when we're actually right, because I told Danny we needed to start doing these things because there's been several times. Look, this is only episode 18, right? Danny and I have only been idiots versus idiots this for the last couple of months, and there's been several times that we have been on the forefront of a news story, or that our opinions on a news story have been dead on, right?
Yeah.
At least my opinions. Danny's, come and go. But
No, 100% correct all the time. I'm a business genius.
according to Danny, he is 100% correct all the time.
Yes.
But so when you look at this situation, you're talking about, like, again, businesses can make mistakes when they just believe in someone, like the Nikola thing or whatever, where you just get conned, and everybody gets conned, right? To a certain extent in a business, you do enough business, there's something you've done along the way that was probably stupid, and you should have made one more phone call, or you should have checked one more thing. So eventually it happens to all of us, but this one is a pattern.
I always say sometimes you're the con and sometimes you get conned, and sometimes most of the time you're the con. I'm not saying that's me.
Well, but this one is a pattern. When you look at this research, and if the research that they put out is true, this guy over and over and over again just conned people. He was at a place called Workplace that was going to eventually Workhorse. I'm sorry, Workhorse.
One day, Rob.
Workplace.
One day the big man's going to figure out how to say names of.
You can kiss my name and ass. But here's the point, right? You know as well as I do that I don't use proper names, and I'm never going to. It's just the way it's the way my brain works. But he screwed over Workplace, and they got rid of him. Damn it! Yeah. Workhorse. I was about to do it again. Workhorse. He screwed over Workhorse.
Workhorse was an EV truck manufacturer that he was the CEO of.
Yes.
In Ohio.
And they pushed him out because he was jacking them over and not spending money where it was supposed to go. He was diverting funds and lying. And and then they turned around and sold him their designs, right? And then he just started it all over again, right? So I mean, this guy, I forget his first name, but it's Burns, right? Steve Burns, right? And so he just turned around and did it again. So it's not only, hey, this came out of nowhere. This guy has a track record of lying to people, but somehow he still gets access to millions and millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. He is yet to meet a single production promise. He's his recent, apparently, and I read this in there, I didn't know because it probably wasn't national news where it should have been, is one of his prototypes that they have very few of caught on fire and exploded.
Happens.
Sure. Happens. I'm just saying that, okay, you've promised these things.
You don't got to be such a big jerk about it, big man. Sometimes your prototype catches on fire and explodes, okay? You can't be pissed at them for that. It happens, bro. Gosh.
Yeah, I can. If I was an investor that just handed you $200 and something million, yeah, come on.
Let me just round out this story, and then the big man's going to read his ad. But I just want to round off this story by saying this much. If you're watching this, you shouldn't do fraud at all, ever, and you should never lie. You should have the audacity that it takes to just believe in yourself this much. Steve Burns believed in himself so much that he said, I can make a fake business. I can get the largest auto manufacturer in the country of the United States of America to give me a factory on a loan that they give me.
He didn't even use somebody else's money. He didn't even go to a bank and go, hey, can I have $40 million to buy this? It's worth it. No. We don't want that paperwork and have to actually look into your background. So,
Have the audacity to believe in yourself so much that you tell yourself, I can do anything, and then you go out there and you end up accidentally, oops, it was an accident, screwing over the company that you're a CEO of, and then you start a separate company. And you proceed to commit fraud. Fraud? Is that how it's pronounced? Fraud? I don't know how it's pronounced.
The balls on that guy. The balls on that guy.
So what I'm trying to walk away with the lesson, and the lesson for the wider idiots versus idiots universe, is that don't do fraud, don't lie, but have the gigantic brass balls of Steve Burns to go out there and say, Trevor Milton can fake it. Steve Burns can also fake
it. Just say shit. That's your takeaway from this story. Danny's takeaway is just say shit. Say shit, no, people.
No, don't say that. What I'm saying is, my takeaway from the story is, believe in yourself and look at what you can achieve. Look at what Steve Burns has achieved with nothing. He had nothing.
Nothing.
And he just had a couple of prototypes, one of which, oops.
Catches fire and explodes. Who gets into the next one? Like to drive it onto whatever stage they, like.
No, I don't. Yeah, no, this is a classic reasoning of why I'm sticking with internal combustion for the next decade. But I'm just saying, there's another person whose name we shall not mention, but I'll just say he's orange. And I don't agree with that person on a lot of things. But the audacity to say, I could be the leader of the free world. That audacity is
That's
to say
the same category of brass balls you're talking about. Yes.
And that is, again, if you have time will either promote you or expose you.
Absolutely.
That's a saying that one of my, when I was back in, speaking of skeevy industries, I was in the network marketing industry. I learned a lot, and that's one of the things I learned. And so Steve and that orange person got exposed. But if you actually have something to offer and you don't have the confidence to execute against the thing you have to offer, that value proposition. But here's the thing, look how far you can go. Fire Festival, Lordstown,
Nicola.
All of these, Nicola.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the former CEO of Nissan, we talked about that in episode 7 with Matt Cox. We're going to have him on again to talk about some more scams. But the audacity, the brass balls to say, I could fake, I could fake an entire electric truck company and convince the America's largest auto manufacturer that it's legitimate.
And to give me $40 million to buy their own. Like that, I can't get over it. Like you walked into somebody's house and said, not only are you going to sell this to me, you're going to give me the money to sell it to me. Like that's
the money to buy it.
Yeah, that is
to me, that is, God bless America. Right? When I read stories like this, all I hear in the background of my head is proud to be
American. Yeah,
and I'm waving the flag, and there's a storm coming, and I'm just like, I'm gonna take it all on, man.
I can totally see that about you.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. I can totally see that. And speaking of crap that we don't need, but it is a capitalist America that we live in. Yes. Big Man Gear. Big Man Gear is the big man. That's me. Idea is a funny merch brand. It is every corny dad joke. Well, everything that I think is a corny dad joke. And meme on a t-shirt for sale on Amazon Prime. Currently, you can buy the unapproved Idiots vs. Idiots logo tee, which Danny absolutely hates.
Yep.
At bigmangear.com, because who doesn't need another t-shirt that tells everyone how you feel about their personal news source?
Yeah. And by the way, for those of you that are uninitiated and are not following us on Twitter at IdiotsVidiots, you may have noticed that I tweeted out that we are back in negotiations. We have not got the attorneys involved yet. But that might very well happen. And so we are negotiating with some of our, graphics and branding. So, let's just jump into
comes back to Danny's a big old baby. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay. I mean, here's the thing. Guess what now, big man? I'm getting the attorneys involved.
Actionable.
Yep, that's actionable.
Words.
Yeah, we have it on video. So I'm literally right now. Okay. I'm texting Eli right now, and Rothstein, and Berg will be in contact with your with your people. So my people
Anytime.
are gonna call your people.
Yeah.
And we are like a divorced couple where he ends up having to pay both legal bills anyway. Speaking of
Oh
divorce
God,
and
so
things
true.
that are really, really sad, my favorite electronics store, which I moved from the north and I moved to Austin, and I still remember walking into Fry's, the Fry's in North Austin. I remember, I don't know who I texted one of my friends who's no longer with us. He didn't die. He's just in prison. Um, and I'm
Mopac and
texting him.
Parmer. Fries.
Yeah,
Mopac and Parmer. Yep.
right. And I remember going into the store and going, did I just go back to the 90s? Like,
Yes.
this isn't a throwback electronics store. It's a Fry's Electronics just one day just said, yeah, we're not in business anymore.
Well, look, and they probably, when you get down to it, I've wondered for years how they've stayed in business.
Yeah, no,
Um,
and this was 6 or 7 years ago where I said, how does this even exist then?
Yeah, well, because Fry's Electronics, I'll tell you again, they had a Fry's where I grew up in Dallas, and Fry's was the essentially massive Radio Shack, right? I didn't know until we started researching the story that it's never been a corporate business. It's been a family owned. It was created by three brothers, the Fry brothers, and and I did know that they were a little offbeat. Your Fry's in different towns, they kind of took on
Yeah, they all
the
have.
weird stuff about that location.
Yeah, so like the one in New Mexico looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, and the one in Houston's got oil derricks and stuff like this. So it
Pockets.
was gimmicky, right, or whatever. But I remember in Dallas when I couldn't find a computer, component,
Yeah,
a cord of some sort. I knew that I could go to Fry's and they would have it.
they
It
would have it.
essentially
Yeah.
they were a massive Walmart-sized superstore for Radio Shack, right?
But I think like here's the thing: they're like a super Walmart with Radio Shack level like resistors and cables. And
Right.
so when I first moved to Austin, when I first moved, I walked into the store and I was like, what planet am I on?
Well, it's
Right?
because when you did that 6 years ago, you think about when this was created back in the 80s, like this was a great idea, which is
Yeah,
why they grew the way that they did. And they
it
made a
was
lot of
the
money
format. Yeah.
for a long time. What happened to them? The same thing that happened to Blockbuster, same thing that happened to anything. They did not transition their business during the last 20 years. They're online still up until months ago. I don't remember, several months ago. It wasn't too terribly long ago. I went to Fry's.com to buy something. I never bought anything from Fry's.com because their website was garbage. It was hard to
Yeah.
find anything. It was hard to, you know what I mean? It wasn't easy to use. So you have a great business that did not change with the times, did not listen. And
Yeah.
then not only did they not do that, but when their businesses apparently a decade ago started to fail, they did nothing to change it. They ended up
Yeah.
falling all the way from what you and I think is Fry's and a great store to be in to they were basically a consignment shop. I didn't know that until I started reading the articles
Yeah.
of this story. They didn't even own their own inventory at the end.
Yeah. They towards the end, somewhere in 2020, before the great events of 2020, they went from buying inventory to having consignment inventory because they couldn't afford to put inventory on the shelves.
Right.
So they were already in a situation where, and there are videos of this on YouTube that you can look up if that's interesting to you, where they're basically like they have these huge, and they're probably 40-50,000 square foot
Oh, they're
warehouses.
super Walmart sized
Yeah,
stores, right? There.
and they're empty shelves.
Sure, because they couldn't afford to put the stuff on them.
I remember when I first walked into, and I grew up where the flagship headquarters store of Best Buy is. I actually worked at it when I was in college. I'm from the greater Minneapolis St. Paul area. That's where Best Buy's from, and this was how Best Buy was when I was in the '90s when I was a kid. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They had this really cool car audio setup. They had all these couches where the TVs are.
Yep.
This was a throwback, and I was like, and then the part that really just sent me for a loop was they had a cafe.
They did. Really?
Huh?
I
I don't.
this,
And the thing I bought, and I went to this cafe, and it looks like it's straight out of 1995. And when I first started college, way, way, way back when I was 16 years old in 2004 or five, it was kind of before the energy drink craze. And there was an energy drink spelled BAWLS, balls. And it came in a glass bottle. Now, I remember before we could buy, there was not Red Bull or anything else at college where I went to college. And you could buy them and they tasted fine, but it was like this first time where you're like, hey, man, right? And I hadn't seen one in a decade. And they had them at this, where I felt like I walked through the door into another dimension.
right.
And they had them, and I was like, where am I? Okay. I don't understand where I am right now. What year? I don't know. It's not where am I? When am I? Like, what year is it?
Yeah.
And I kept looking around the store, and they had inventory. And this is back when they carried their own inventory or sold their own inventory. Mm-hmm. They had gaming laptops that I've never been able to see in person anywhere. Right.
Right.
And I'm like, this place, I was expecting, I was like, oh, they're going to be closed in 2 weeks. Well, they're not going to be open for long.
No, and I agree with you, but they somehow limped on. I'm going to put a different spin on it. It doesn't surprise me that they closed. It doesn't surprise me that the last year of Dos Equis was the nail in the coffin, right? With even smaller foot traffic. And they had a department in Fry's for the last decade that fixed computers and stuff like that I'm sure was lucrative for them. Anytime I'd ever been in there and talked to one of those people, they were knowledgeable. They knew what they were doing. They seemed to have contracts, and maybe that's what propped them up for a while, was they seemed to have contracts with companies for repairing computers and stuff like that. But computer components was usually why I went into them, because they sold used ones, kind of like GameStop, does games.
Yeah.
They would sell used video cards and stuff like that. But anyway, so I'm going to put a different spin on this. I think this business, like a lot of businesses that have shuttered in the last 18 months, again, is going to give, this is why I think the coming out of this Dos Equis is going to be one of the biggest opportunities in yours and my lifetimes, because things like that may have limped in to the beginning of Dos Equis didn't make it out the other side.
Yeah,
that
survive.
Does not mean that those services aren't needed coming out the other side.
It just meant that whoever was providing that service didn't have a concept of how to do it correctly.
Or just couldn't last it. Right? Look, there are businesses all across America, regardless of whether it's in Fry's Electronics or restaurants or whatever, that from month to month, even though they look like big business to you, scrape by paycheck to paycheck. Most companies are like most Americans. They live paycheck to paycheck. A restaurant uses last month's, what I mean, things to pay the rent for this month, and and so on and so forth. And then you turn that into 18 months with basically no revenue, and it could kill almost any business.
Right. I do think that the device repair and maintenance business, there hasn't been a real national player to come in and be like, hey, we repair phone screen. And doing these kinds of things. What's funny is that off of Mopac and Parmer, that specific Fry's that we're talking about, that we've all been in, or you and I have been in dozens of times, if not more, right in that strip mall, there is a computer repair and customizing store.
Yeah.
And I was like, why on God's green earth are you down the street from Fry's? He's like, well, some people go in there, they get a price, too expensive. And then they're driving out of there's only one way in and out. And they're driving out, and what do they see? Me. Smart. You're a smart person.
Absolutely. Well, and I think Best Buy tried that with Geek Squad, right?
It wasn't
or whatever. But it's hard to make, I'm sure, from a big business like that, it's hard to make those work, right? The computer repair business uses a lot of, like the flat screen TV repair business, they're not using new products. You go into a flat screen repair company, they're using a different, right?
Is
replaced. Absolutely. No, this is how they do it. This is how they survive that big companies can't. So because that's the thing about computers and flat screen TVs, is technology changes so fast that they're not producing. It's not like a car where a car comes out and they produce a Toyota water pump for the next 20 years. No, this TV, the screen that they made on these TVs, they may have only made as many of those screens as they made TVs until they developed a new product or whatever. So if you bring that TV in to get it repaired, the only way they can repair it or replace that screen is to buy another screen from an old of that same TV. These computer repair places do the same thing because that motherboard for that computer may no longer be made, and it's difficult to replace. Parts aren't interchangeable in computer components. So what it's created is this back end, not black market, but this back end market, where they sell each other components. From I'm going to sell you the motherboard because I need the video card, and then, you know what I mean, and whatever, and that's how those independents stay in business. Versus a Geek Squad or whatever, they have to buy new parts and locate new parts.
Yeah. So the independents are doing is effectively what you're saying is they're scrapping, right? They're okay.
100%.
I'm going to buy this. Okay, you need a new whatever screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy the screen. I'm going to charge you a price. I'm going to make some profit there. But on the back end, I'm selling all the components that you didn't need to fix it. That
Same
makes
thing
sense.
with cell phone repair companies. All of these companies that are doing it in this way because it's the only way they survive, right? But it still happens to be less than buying a new computer or buying a new phone or buying a new whatever. So as long as that is, the problem is it's not sustainable for older products. Every day that goes by is less likely for you finding a screen that fits that TV, a motherboard that fits that computer, whatever.
And that's unfortunate for some people because some people just, and I know you're one of these people that hang on to things for long.
Dude, I still have the original flat screen TV that I bought. The original flat 32-inch heavy ass flat screen TV.
So, so I don't. Everything if I get a new thing, I'm like out with the old, in with the new, you know.
Well, but I've replaced the motherboard to that TV, and that's exactly how I replaced it. It went out.
Motherboard?
I went to eBay. I got the serial number off of it. Went to eBay, found a broken that had a broken screen on it. Bought it for something like $10. Unscrewed it, put it in. TV works perfect and has for years.
Let me tell you exactly how I would have solved the problem that you just described. Taking that 32-inch heavy television, tucked it in the, and then I would have went and bought a 55-inch from Costco for $8.
Right.
That's like,
right. And and I get why people do that, and there's obviously a time and a place for that. But you get a company, and this goes back to it, the opportunity coming out the other side, because we have created that environment, right? Somebody, all of those people that still went to Fry's yesterday or whenever it closed, right? Those have to go somewhere, right? That the foot traffic that was going into Fry's a year ago still exists. They didn't go anywhere, right?
Right. And part of the article that we're going to link in the description is it talks a little bit about how this is a huge, because they're based out of San Francisco. So they just said volume of real estate that is now opened up because of that is like hundreds and hundreds of homes will now, because they're going to build the high rises. They're going to try. And it's going to be huge.
Well, I think you've got that all over commercial, right? Coming out of Dos Equis, you're going to have commercial real estate, which up until that point, all across America, especially in big cities like Austin and, Central Texas and all of Florida, right, or whatever, they couldn't they've been building commercial for the last decade because they couldn't build it fast enough, right? And then now you have you're going to have, again, opportunity coming out of this is you're going to have a lot of these commercial businesses that shut down. And they need to be filled in, right? So
and that real estate, because like you look at just that one store we're talking about, they're gonna fit 50 different things in, right?
Oh yeah, because there's no other current store, right? Single store that is gonna utilize that space. You know what I mean? Your Walmarts, your Targets, those companies out there are out there building their own buildings. They're out there creating these stores.
They're not, and that store was old to begin with. So.
They're not moving into a space like this that probably already has a Walmart and a Target down the street, right?
I just had an idea for that location. I'm gonna call somebody on Monday. But
And by call somebody, he probably means me and tries to get me to spend more money on investing in something that,
yep.
you know.
Yeah, that's literally what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Let's jump into this last story. First, I want to tell you about two things. If you did not know, and I held up 3 fingers,
Yeah, you did.
I want to tell you about riselentless.com, RISELENTLESS, riselentless.com. I sell fun mugs for entrepreneurs, hustlers, and anyone that dares to dream. And also, I want to tell you about something interesting that's happening right here on Idiots versus Idiots. I've started my own podcast where I talk about cars. I talk about the car industry and the car business, and same basic format, except I am not burdened. I'm not weighed down by the big man. I
So
get to
he's
just fly free.
piggybacking off of my awesomeness,
Uh-huh.
essentially.
Yeah.
And, and trying to create his own thing. So,
Well,
like every good marriage, every good
uh-huh.
relationship
We have an open
requires
relationship.
some, flexibility to let the other person be them. So, you know what? I'm going to allow Danny to have his thing.
Allow.
All right,
Okay.
Danny to have his thing. And y'all all know if you have someone, you care about, that you try to let them do their thing. So, his is a car show, and, good for him.
Called Carspiracy because I'm the Alex Jones of cars.
I have no doubt about that, brother.
Right.
Anyway, what do we got last, bud?
This new company called My Heritage, which spooks me out, and I wish they would stop.
I was actually really surprised. Y'all may not know this about Danny, and it's as how do I say this? As brash as Danny can be, you might be surprised to know how freaked out Danny gets by the smallest little things. He's actually, without being too superstitious, he's really superstitious. So kind of. He doesn't like scary movies, anything that freaks him out. He's a fraidy cat is what he is. He's a fraidy cat. When it comes to certain subjects.
Yeah. I don't watch scary movies because they give me nightmares, and I'm a grown adult. There's no reason to put myself in that situation. Okay.
So you get something like this. This company, My Heritage, is actually one of those DNA companies that's where it makes its money. Right? Is you submit your DNA, it sells you. It collects your data, sells your own data, that kind of stuff.
Go ahead and just send your DNA to the internet. That sounds like a smart idea.
Oh, well, and we'll get into that as part of this story of part of its terms and conditions that have come under question, this particular company. But This is a new product that, okay, by the way, you should really look into what products you're using. It's called Deep Nostalgia is the name of the product.
It's a type of created by AI.
Yeah, it was created by an Israeli company called DID. That the original use of this software that they created was to sell to people that did not want their face scanned, basically to sell to criminals, to change their eyes so that the current used facial ID software could not identify criminals.
I am not a criminal, sir.
I didn't say you were.
Okay, and just because I don't want my face scanned does not make me a criminal. It makes makes me a patriot. That's what it makes me.
All I'm saying is, so the creator of this software, DID, that was their intent. They then now licensing this software to My Heritage. My Heritage is rebranding it as Deep Nostalgia. And the point of this, look, folks, you should, if you really want to be creeped out a little bit, you should definitely go to Google, type in Deep Nostalgia, look at some of these, and essentially it's taking a photo.
If you just want to click the link in the description.
Click the link in the description, I'm sorry. But if you look, and essentially you upload a photo, and their idea is, okay, they're trying to get you with these old photos to get you, again, to sell your DNA, right? Let them tell you about your past and whatever. But essentially takes a single photo and then animates it with artificial intelligence mapping, right? Tracking someone's face. And it is ultra creepy. Ultra creepy. To be able to upload just what you're thinking in your mind about an old black and white photo of your great-great-great Aunt Sally, right? Yep. and then it processes, and Aunt Sally's all,
Yeah, no thanks. Just stop,
like,
please.
it is. I went through about a dozen of these
Yeah.
before we started, and it got just creepier and creepier and creepier as it went along. Like, I don't know what the point of this is, except for just a good old fashioned.
Okay. I saw a TikTok on Instagram of a guy showing his elderly father a animated this deepfake AI of his father, and his dad was like not he wasn't freaked out in a weird. He's like, oh wow, so that's nice, but also stop,
Like
just
it,
don't.
it's well, and here's the thing: they're gonna get you. Here's where this is not a bad business idea. Is the first one's free, right? Several of them are free. Now you still have to register. You got to give them an email address or whatever. But the first couple of them are free. But if you want unlimited, right, of these per month, there's a fee structure to it, and good for them. And here's the deal: people will pay for something like this, at least for a while, because it's super duper creepy. It's super duper, you know what I mean? We might have to do an episode on this where we actually upload some photos in real time and do it right there just to
No,
creep Danny out.
we
But
don't have to do any of that.
but then so here's my problem with it though is you've got this MyHeritage company, which is a real company doing DNA testing and informing people, but they've already been by a couple of different countries. They've been sued because of what they're doing with your data. People don't understand that about these DNA companies, that you all sign these terms and service, and yes, they send you that you're 60% European and 50% whatever, but now they turn around and sell all of that data to other people, and this company is not only doing that, they're not only selling your information, they're like getting way into it. They've been sued twice because their terms and conditions are so unhorrible. At one point they were said to be illiterate or something like that, like it was that dumb. So you're not only selling your DNA data to this company, now you're sending them photos that they can then turn around and do with whatever they want to do with them. You're not even owning your own photos anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's an oops. They didn't mean to do it. They love you and they have a plan
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
So the reason I
yeah.
included this story is simply because no thanks. I'm a person, I call myself a technologist, sort of, but I believe that there's no reason we shouldn't jump on board and adopt the all that technology has to offer. But as I've gotten older and as time has worn on, I start to understand the position that is like, hey, let's go live in the woods and not do any of this nonsense, right? Like,
Well,
it's too far. It's too much.
How do you know? I mean, look, there's going to be a time in the not so distant future. This actually was a lot of talk on TikTok this past week about the deep fake Tom Cruise guy, right?
Oh, the fact that you even have a TikTok, I don't
Hey,
even know how to deal with it.
jump off a bridge. The point is the Tom Cruise, right? And there's this guy on TikTok that has made himself famous in the last couple of weeks about showing how simple it is with his body type to deep fake Tom Cruise and do this kind of thing.
Are you saying I can't deep fake Tom Cruise?
No, you cannot. But the point is how in the not so distant future do you tell the difference between, because we live in an environment, especially when it comes to
news and politics,
news and stuff like that, where we use video as evidence. Right? Here's a video of Danny doing something really stupid with somebody he shouldn't be doing.
Well,
and we, as 99% of the viewers, take that as reality.
That's
truth.
Fact, yeah.
Whether you actually get convicted of it or not is irrelevant, right? So how do you create a future where we can, something as easy as this, right, comes along, and then I make a video of Danny doing something stupid that he shouldn't be doing, right, or whatever.
Take it easy.
I'm using Danny as an example here. But so how do you rectify that, right, in this kind of world? Because I guarantee you, when you go and you look at the current deep nostalgia products out there, right, that of people that have already done this, it is super duper realistic and super duper creepy. Now, it's not, you can sit there and if you watch it for a second, you can see the bits, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A
But
little bit, the
okay.
eye movement, but it's close.
So like 5 years ago, when they were talking about deep fakes and how good they were going to get, they had come out with some of a former president saying things he never said in a setting he
Right.
never was in. And they're like, yeah, the technology is only going to get better rapidly. And I thought, I mean, how much better can it really get, right? Oh crap! How good did it really
Yeah.
get, and how quickly? Easy, right? And so I think the only takeaway for me is don't trust your eyes, friend.
This software is creating movement from a single
Yeah,
still picture.
right.
I mean, deepfakes up to this point were straight out of Mission Impossible. You needed several photos, you
Yeah, it
needed
was
directional
crazy.
photos, right? You needed to plug in, right, essentially a 3D model to
Yeah,
make
like
this work, to make a
and
deepfake
and
work.
you needed a lot of processing power to even get it to work. In
Right.
addition to the what you needed for, you know, do you see what I'm saying? Like
Now
so,
now
it's
here's an
wild.
app that fits on your phone that you can
Yeah,
upload a single photo that it's
and
using an
it's
algorithm to fill in the blanks.
wacky town. Okay, like that's what I'm saying. Is like we went too far.
Yeah, and again, I think just like you said about the deep fake from 4 or 5 years ago, I think it's just going to progress and continue to get right.
Yeah,
Where I mean, there are people that are writing stories and books right now that are talking about the whole avatar thing, right? Like I can no, well, I don't mean switching bodies. I'm talking about from an electronic standpoint that
right.
you and I could be doing this podcast, and I make myself look however I want to look, and it
And
looks realistic, and that is my face to anybody watching the show.
yeah, and then all we do is feed because as the visual AI gets better, the audio AIs they're getting really close to where you can't tell it's a robot talking to you, right?
Oh yeah, no, they
Because
what is it? Last year or this year's technology conference or whatever, they
yeah,
did some where the computer created the face. Like it's
yeah,
not even a picture of someone else.
and it's
The
just
computer
talking.
generated
Yeah,
what he thinks, right? They put in,
yeah,
all right, Anglo 30
yeah,
something, whatever. They put in the stats, and the computer generated a realistic looking person based on that input,
yeah.
and then
So I'm
talked.
here's all I'm saying, right? Is buy some land, put up a barn, move to the woods. You know,
I'm
I
just saying.
yeah no listen um it's hard for me to see the value. And most of the time, whether it's cell phones, it's 5G, whatever thing that people are like, oh, it's going to kill us all or it's going to ruin our lives, I can always see the other side of it where, okay, I understand that you're concerned, but the upside benefits are uncalculable for the average person, right?
Hmm.
The ubiquity of the internet and how that's freed so many people, all this other stuff. This stuff, I go, no.
Did you ever see Her by Joaquin Phoenix?
No, or with Joaquin Phoenix. No, I
With
didn't
Joaquin,
watch
I'm
that because
sorry.
I'm not insane.
You should. It's a great
No,
movie, but it
I
kind of
I did
speaks to this.
I did see the Joker, and I start to see where he's coming from with Joaquin.
But anyway, this is the whole. And look, this conspiracy theory of this has been
Oh
around since the 80s and 90s, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean? With all of this, how artificial Terminator, right? Like
yeah. I
all
mean,
these things, but
and
it's
there was
gonna
a
get
guy.
super hard to understand what's real and fake,
Yeah, and there
and
was
then
this
you add
guy
that with an unethical news
cycle.
cycle.
Yeah, and there was a guy who kind of had some of these thoughts, but he took it to a completely different place, and he's in prison now. And his name was Theodore, and I can't say his last name, but it starts with a K. But I just, I think we had a good show, and I just want to wrap up by saying this one thing. If you are arguing with someone in public, put your phone on speaker because I want to know whose side I'm on. That's all.
Whichever side is the crazier, that's what side you're on. We appreciate you folks. We'll see you next time.
Bye.